Hello YouTube! Today a video on the Khajiit creation myth in the wake of the ESO Elsewhere DLC. And we will see what we already know before that DLC. Now, today, once again I got help by my good friend Mr. NerdDragon from the Discord, who knows a hell of a lot more about these subjects about the Khajiit than I do, so I'm very grateful for his help. Due to my pronunciation issues, he was even gracious enough to record some Khajiit pronunciation for me for the use of this video. So if you just hear another voice than mine in this video, then that's him telling me that I suck at pronouncing Khajiit names. With that said, nothing stopping us from talking about the Khajiit creation myths, or at least what we know of it now, so let's kick off with this video. Now, before we begin with the creation myths, I can already tell you that it's important to remember that most Khajiit deities are variations of Imperial/Elven deities, although the Khajiit themselves will always claim that they are entirely different deities from those deities that we know. Whether this is the case is debatable, or whether the creation myth itself even checks out at all with the reality. It probably won't, but today we will cover what the Khajiit believe. So according to the Khajiit, in the beginning of everything, there was but two entities known as the Littermates, Anur and Fedome. Fedome said to Anur, "Let us wed and make children to share our happiness." And so from their bond, Alkosh, the first cat, was born. They made him the guardian of time, saying, "Alkosh, we give you time for what is as fast or as slow as a cat." They gave birth then to Knarthi, the winds.
Kenarthi, to you we give the sky, for what can fly higher than the wind?
They gave birth to Magnus, the cat's eye. Magnus, to you we give the sun, for what is brighter than the eye of a cat. They gave birth to Mara, the mother cat. Mara, you are love, for what is more loving than a mother? They gave birth to Srendar, the runt. Srendar, we give you mercy, for how does a runt survive except by mercy? And then, from many phases, Anur and Fedome were happy. Anur then said, "We should have more children to share our happiness." Fedome agreed. Then they had Hamora. Hamora, you are the tides, for who can say whether the moons predict the tides or the tides predict the moons? They had Hircine. Hircine, you are the hungry cat, for what hunts better than a cat with an empty belly? They had Maruz.
Meruns, you are the Khajiit, for what is more destructive than a kitten?
They had Mafala. Mafala, you are the clan mother, for what is more secretive than the ways of the clan mothers? They had Senjin. Senjin, you are the blood cat, for who can control the urges of blood? And they had Shagarath. Shagarath, are you the skooma cat, for what is crazier than a cat on skooma? And then Anur said, 2 litters is enough, for too many children will steal our happiness. But then, one day, Knarthi approached Fedome and said, "Fedome, mother, Knarthi grows so lonely high above the world where not even my brother Alkosh can fly." Fedome, hearing this, then took pity on her and tricked Anur to have even more children, probably knowing that he wouldn't be happy. And Fedome gave birth to the moons and their motions, and then later she gave birth to Nrini, the spirit of the majestic sands and the lush forests. Later on, she had Azura, the spirit of dusk and dawn. From the beginning, Nrini and Azura would fight over for their mother's favor. But Anur caught Fedome while she was still birthing and got very, very angry. He then attacked Fedome, making her flee too far away in the great darkness to give birth to the last of her litter. Fedome's children all heard what had happened, and they all came to protect her from Anur's great anger, to prevent him from hurting Fedome even more. The last child of Fedome was born, and it was called Lorkaj. When he was born, his heart was filled with the great darkness which took shape and realized its name, Namira. Fedome, wounded by Anur's strike, realized that her time was near, and she spoke to the moon, saying,
Jakajay, to you Fadomai gives the lattice, for what is steadier than the phases of the moons? Your eternal motions will protect us from Anur's anger.
The moons then took their places on the heavens. Anur, furious, tried to shoot the great darkness, but he could not cross the lattice. Then Fedome turned her attention to Narini, saying, Narini, to you Fedome leaves her greatest gift. You will birth to many people, as Fedome gave birth today. Narini then left, but noticing that her rival Azura had nothing, she smiled victoriously. After that, all of Fedome's children left, except for the loyal and caring Azura. Fedome said to her, To you, my favorite daughter, Fedome leaves her greatest gift. To you, Fedome leaves her secrets. And she told Azura, When Narini is filled with her children, take one of them and change them. Make them the fastest, cleverest and most beautiful people and call them the Khajiit. The Khajiit must be the best climbers, for if Messer and Secunda fail, they must climb Canarthi's breath to set the moons back in their courses. The Khajiit must be the best deceivers, for they must always hide their nature from the children of Anur. The Khajiit must be the best survivors, for Narini will be jealous, and she will make the sands harsh and the forest unforgiving. And the Khajiit will always be hungry, and at war with Narini. With these words, Fedome died in her daughter's arms. After many phases, Narini spoke to Lorcash. Lorcash, Fedome told me to give birth to many children, but there is no place to them. Lorcash then said, Lorcash makes a place for the children, and Lorcash puts you there so you can give birth. But Lorcash's heart was filled with the great darkness, and he tricked his siblings so that they were forced into this new place with Narini. Many of them escaped though, and became the stars. But also many of them died, trying to make Narini's path stable. The survivors, filled with rage for being tricked, punished Lorcash, tearing off his heart and hiding it deep within Narini, saying, We curse you, noisy Lorcash, to walk Narini for many phases. This curse is actually related to the speculated Shazarian curse, and with the whole story of the avatars of Shor, which I'm not an expert on. Narini, though, forgave Lorcash, for he was the one who provided her with a place to give birth and have children. Narini then filled herself with children, but cried when she realized that all her favorite children, the forest people, did not know their shape, and they were in a permanent state of chaos, confusion and sadness. Azura, ignoring their bitter rivalry, took pity on Narini and said to her,
Poor Nirni, stop your tears. Azura makes for you a gift of a new people.
When Narini stopped weeping, Azura headed to her, but first she would have to pass through the moons, which guarded Narini and her world. Azura then told them the first secret of Fedome, and they let her through. Azura then took some of the forest people who were torn between man and beast, and placed them on the best deserts and forests of Narini. In her wisdom, Azura made them of many shapes, being one for every purpose. When they were done, Azura named them Khajiit, and told them the second secret of Fedome, also teaching them the value of secrets, and she then bound the Khajiit to the lunar lattice, as is proper for Narini's secret defenders. Then Azura spoke the third secret of Fedome, and the moon shone down on the marshes and their light became sugar. But unfortunately, the deity Ephraim had heard the first secret of Fedome, and snuck behind Azura when she entered Narini. Ephraim didn't appreciate secrets, and he told Narini all about Azura's trick. Enraged, Narini made the deserts hot and the sands biting, and made the forests wet and filled with poisons, in appreciation for Ephraim's service. She also let him change the forest people, now different from the Khajiit. But Ephraim didn't have the subtle wisdom that Azura had, making them remaining forest people, never changing elves, forbidding them to have the shape of beasts, and he named them the Bosmer, and bound them to the Green Pact. Since they were not anymore in the same litter as the Khajiit, it made them bitter enemies to the Khajiit. And because Ephraim had no appreciation for secrets, he shouted the first secret of Fedome across the heavens with all the might of his lungs, to make it possible for all of Fedome's children to cross the lattice. But Azura was quick and clever, and only closed the ears of angry Anur and noisy Lorcash, so they were the only ones not to hear it. The Khajiiti myths explain not only their origin and the origin of the world, but also their link to the moons and their animosity toward the Bosmer, and many other aspects of their culture. Many Imperial scholars point to some contradictions in these myths, and I must agree when I read it all, theorizing that the Khajiit are in fact descendants of a race of great cats in the desert region of Nerd, backing this claim with fragments of letters written by Topol the pilot. But even this evidence can be debated, since in the same era which Topol lived, Penwall Whitestrake slew many thousands of Khajiit during the Elven pogroms, under the impression that they were another strain of Altmeri elves, so much alike that they looked. There are other reports such as this, which can in fact lead to the conclusion that the Khajiit have indeed Elvish ancestry, which is backed up even more by the fact that a couple of Khajiit breeds are very similar in shape to elves and men, and with the fact that Khajiit can more easily interbreed with mer than man, it would lead to the conclusion that the Khajiit may be stemmed from the elves. And that's basically all that we know about the Khajiiti creation myths. Now, before I end this video, I want to thank Mr. NerdDragon for helping me with this video. He knows a lot more about these kind of subjects than I do, so he basically did all the research for me. So that's very helpful, and I want to give him a lot of thanks. And also thanks for his help with the pronunciation, and especially with the parts that he recorded for this video, since I absolutely couldn't pronounce them. I also wish to give a mandatory mention to Mr. Martin from the Discord, because he blackmailed me into doing this. And with that said, if you like this video, then, well, like, subscribe. If you want to see more Elder Scrolls lore content, then you can always just check out my channel. If you want to support me in a more personal way, there is of course my Patreon. You got your name at the end of every video like you see here. And I'm very sorry if it's not currently up to date, because I'm still using the older list, although for the patrons next video it will be up to date. I'm really sorry. That's it. I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.